much time, so I'll proceed with my slides very fast. I begin with the warning of the scientists, 1,600 of them, warning that human beings in the natural world are in collision. So we need to behave responsibly, otherwise we will have the point of no return. And we know about the problem of global warming, which the Time magazine also warned us that we need to be worried and to be very, very worried. So we know all about the calamities. We recently had it in Japan and many other areas as well. And we know that natural calamities and environmental disasters are very much related to the poverty situation all around the world. And calamities, catastrophes happening all around are also occasioned by our irresponsible use of resources, such as slugging and mining. And in our Catholic tradition, we have several encyclicals of the Church saying that at the root of this destruction of our environment is the anthropological destruction, which claims that human beings are the absolute masters of the earth. So somehow the problem lies in how we perceive realities and how we set our relationship to the world. So much so that one very prolific writer, Schumacher, he's also saying that it's no longer possible to believe that any political or economic reform or scientific advance could solve the life and death problems that we face. The problems lie too deep in the heart and the soul of everyone. And he goes on saying that the ecological crisis is the very imprint of our cultural and spiritual crisis. So the ecological problem goes hand in hand with our crisis in spirituality. And this is also confirmed by World Bank study, Palmer and Finlay in 2003. They were saying that no matter how we try to solve, to give solutions to provide solutions to the problems we have, all the technologies, it's not sufficient. World Bank study is saying that ultimately the environmental crisis is a crisis of the mind. We see, we do, and we are what we think, and what we think is shaped by our cultures, faiths, and beliefs. So even the World Bank study is telling us that all these problems about ecological destruction has got to do with our spiritual relationship with the world, the way we perceive our relationship with the world. And this has got to do with our faith and beliefs. We know Al Gore, the former U.S. Vice President of the United States, who is very much into campaigning about global warming. He also have this statement to add that the more deeply I search for the roots of the global environmental crisis, the more I am convinced that it is an outer manifestation of an inner crisis. For the lack of better word, he call it spiritual. So as a politician, he also affirms that this is not only environmental but also spiritual problem, cultural. What other word describes the collection of values and assumptions that determine our basic understanding of how we fit into the world. It is our own spiritual disposition. Thomas Berry, in his speech at Harvard University, tried to find out where do we find our rootedness in spiritual tradition, and he finds it more specifically among the indigenous peoples. Thomas Berry is saying that in earlier traditions, they experienced profound intimacy with the natural world. It is very spiritual, as what our indigenous sister here talked about earlier. But in the course of time, we have moved from intimacy to the natural world to the alienation of the modern civilization. And Thomas Berry is calling that cultural pathology. We have cultural pathology. So there is a need to have a kind of paradigm shift from this consciousness participation, not participation, to participating consciousness. We view our resources in a utilitarian way, that the world is a resources to satisfy our human desires. But if we try to dwell more into participating consciousness of the indigenous peoples, they see reality as something not outside of themselves, but something that they are very much in close and intimate relationship with. So this is from the book of Clive Hamilton and Maurice Berman. And Maurice Strong, he is a Canadian and former Secretary General of UNCED, is also saying that we must reinstate in our lives the ethic of love and respect for the earth, which the indigenous peoples retain as essential to their value systems. So if we agree that part of the problem, or a big part of the problem, has got to do with our own spiritual conviction, so Maurice Strong is saying we need to learn from the indigenous peoples on how to appreciate this intimate relationship with nature and with the world. We need to learn from them. And we call that cultural energy. We need to affirm this energy as an alternative ecological vision. We need a kind of conversion in order to really appreciate the indigenous belief, core priorities and ethical values, social paradigm that would really save the planet, because they have a more positive way of looking at things and appreciation for conservation of the whole environment. So to rediscover the wisdom of indigenous values and tradition, we need to harness this cultural energy. This is what we call spiritual ecology, in order to redeem us from the prevailing, very much anthropocentric, materialistic, and overly consumerist mindset many of us have. We are all familiar with this poem from the chief of the Indian chief in the U.S. Every part of the earth is sacred to my people. Every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every meadow, every humming insect, all are holy in the memory and experience of my people. This we know, the earth does not belong to man, man belongs to the earth. All things are connected, like the blood that unites us all. Man did not weave the web of life, he is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does in the web, he does to himself. This is the kind of spirituality that we would like to have in our approach to our environment. But among the indigenous peoples, even in Latin America and even in the Philippines, we have that. We have MacLean Dulang, a martyr for environmental protection. A big company, corporation was building a dam way back in the 70s. And he sacrificed his life in defense for their land. And he has this statement, you ask us if we own the land, saying, where is your title? The title for the land. Such arrogance of owning the land when you shall be owned by it. How can you own that which will outlive you? So these are some of the examples of how indigenous peoples value, appreciate the relationship to the land. We take care of the land, and the land will take care of us. Alan here is taking our picture, went to this village, and this is an elderly indigenous people leader who made this statement. We need not to destroy the land because we need to take care of it, and the land will take care of us. So this kind of perspective, I would just like to invite you also to appreciate the creation story of the indigenous peoples. I live among the Alangan indigenous peoples, the indigenous peoples in my country. So this is how they view reality, how they view their relationship to the universe, how they view creation, and how was the world created. So I invite you to join me in trying to appreciate their perspective. The Bangian indigenous peoples, they are very much, they have pretty much maintained their inherent sacred relationship to the land. Land is sacred, where the spirit dwells. And for the indigenous peoples in our country, as in the other parts of the world, the whole creation is deeply imbued with spiritual reality, and they live their lives always in reverence to the unseen powers enveloping the earth. So we can learn lessons from this story, from this creation myth of the indigenous peoples, and we can have it, we can own it as our own story too. As we find ourselves in this story as part of the immediate communion with the natural world, we enter into the process of rediscovering our capacity for entering into the larger community of life. Every form of being is integral with this story. Nothing is itself without everything else. So now we go with the story of creation from the indigenous peoples in the Philippines. This is how they view how the world was created. This is their own Genesis story in Christian terms. In the beginning, there were no people here yet. Only God, they call him Ambuao, live in the atmosphere. For a time, he had been seated and thinking what would be good to do. After thinking, he or she made a bidak, it's a kind of container, and put it on top of his head. Then he created a woman he called Balo and placed her in the bidak, in the container.